The Great Hall of the Accord Station was the most beautiful place in the galaxy. Crystal walls stretched up into darkness. Light from 1,000 stars poured through the glass ceiling. For 12,000 years, this was where peace was made. Every war ended here. Every species bowed to the wisdom of the Galactic Council. Admiral Park stood at the front of the human delegation. He was 62 years old. His hair was gray. His face was hard like stone. He had fought in 3 wars and buried too many soldiers. Behind him stood 40 humans in their black uniforms. They were diplomats, officers, and advisors. They had traveled 6 months through deep space to reach this place. Lieutenant stood closest to the admiral. She was young, only 28. Her eyes were sharp and cold. 3 years ago, the hegemony had attacked a city called Nova. They burned it from orbit. 50,000 people died in blue fire. His mother, father, and little brother were among them. She still saw their faces when she closed her eyes. The council chamber was full. 47 species had sent their representatives. There were tall insects with clicking jaws. They floated like clouds of colored gas. There were giants made of living rock. They all watched the humans with curiosity. This young species had only discovered space travel 200 years ago. They were children compared to the ancient races. High Arbiter floated at the center of the chamber. He was made of pure light, a being so old that he had forgotten his original form. He had mediated 10,000 conflicts. He had never failed. "The Council has reached its decision," announced. His voice filled every corner of the room. "We will now deliver the terms of peace between humanity and the hegemony." Kept his face blank, but inside he felt something cold growing in his chest. "The hegemony has expressed regret for the conflict," continued. "However, the Council recognizes that humanity's expansion into the outer rim created tensions. Both sides share responsibility." His hands formed fists at her sides. "Share responsibility." The hegemony had attacked without warning. They had murdered civilians. They had laughed while cities burned. "Therefore," said, "humanity will surrender the colony worlds of 3 and new. Humanity will reduce its military fleet by 60%. Humanity will pay compensation to the hegemony for ships lost in the conflict." The human delegation was silent. Not one person moved. "The hegemony will face no sanctions. Their territorial claims in the disputed zone will be recognized. This is the judgment of the Council. This is justice. This is peace." Let the words hang in the air. He looked around the chamber at all these ancient beings. They truly believed they were being fair. They truly believed that humans would accept this, that humanity would give up worlds where millions of people lived, that they would tear apart their own fleet, that they would pay money to the monsters who burned their children. Ambassador Han said quietly, "Read the casualty report." Ambassador Han stepped forward. She was a small woman with silver hair. Her voice was steady and clear. "The hegemony attack on human space killed 112,000 civilians. They destroyed 4 cities. They used weapons that are banned by Galactic Convention. They targeted hospitals and schools. They broadcast the destruction as entertainment for their population." The chamber was very quiet now. "We presented evidence of these crimes," continued. "The Council acknowledged the evidence, and yet the Council asks us to surrender, to pay, to bow." Flickered with annoyance. "The Council has considered all factors. Young species often struggle to see the larger picture. In time, humanity will understand that this peace serves everyone." Smiled. It was not a warm smile. "No," he said. The translation systems hummed. Several species leaned forward, unsure what they had heard. "I do not understand," said. "The word is simple," replied. "No, humanity does not accept these terms. We will not surrender our worlds. We will not destroy our ships. We will not pay blood money to murderers." "This is not a negotiation," said. His light grew brighter with anger. "The Council has ruled. You must accept." "Must?" turned to look at the hegemony delegation across the chamber. Their leader, a creature of scales and teeth, was smiling. It thought it had won. It thought humans were weak. "We must do nothing. Humanity is not your subject. We did not ask to join your council. We do not recognize your authority over our people." The chamber erupted in noise. Species that had not spoken in centuries began shouting. This had never happened. No one refused the council. No one raised his hand. His delegation fell into formation behind him. "The hegemony wanted war," he said. "They will have it, but it will not be the war they expected. It will be the war they deserve." He looked directly at, "And when it is over, you will understand that you made a terrible mistake today. You had a chance to show humanity that the galaxy was just. Instead, you showed us that power matters more than truth. We will not forget this lesson." He turned his back on 12,000 years of galactic order. Humanity is leaving. The delegation walked toward the great doors. Their boots echoed on the crystal floor. Every eye in the chamber watched them go. Felt tears on her cheeks, but she kept walking. For the first time since Nova, she felt something other than grief. She felt proud. The doors closed behind them with a deep sound, like a heart stopping. In the silence that followed, High Arbiter realized something terrible. He had mediated 10,000 conflicts. He had always known what each species would do. He could predict their fears, their needs, their breaking points. But as he watched the empty space where the humans had stood, he understood that he had no idea what they would do next. And that scared him more than anything had in 3,000 years. The council held an emergency meeting 3 hours after the humans left. The crystal chamber buzzed with confusion and anger. In 12,000 years, no species had ever refused a council judgment. The ancient races did not know what to do. Trade Minister spoke first. He was a creature like a giant mantis with black eyes and sharp claws. "This is temporary madness," he said, his mandibles clicking rapidly. "Humans are emotional creatures. They feel strongly, but they think poorly. When they calm down, they will return. They will apologize. They will accept our terms." Many delegates nodded in agreement. Humans were so young. They had been traveling the stars for only 200 years. They had ruled their sector for 40,000 years. They had existed before most planets formed. What could humans possibly know about galactic politics? High Arbiter was not so sure. He had seen something in Admiral Park's eyes, something that did not look like madness or emotion. It looked like calculation, like patience, like a hunter waiting for the perfect moment. But push these thoughts aside. The council had ruled. The council was always right. "We will apply pressure," announced. "Economic sanctions will begin immediately. Human ships will be docking rights at all council stations. Trade routes will be closed. Within 3 months, their economy will collapse. They will have no choice but to return and accept our judgment." The delegates agreed. This had worked before. Smaller species had tried to resist council decisions in the past. They always broke when the trade stopped. Always. Far away, aboard the human battleship Indomitable, Fleet Commander watched the council's broadcast with a cold smile. She was 45 years old with short black hair and a scar across her left cheek. She had spent 20 years studying alien warfare. She knew their tactics, their weapons, their weaknesses. And she knew something the council did not understand. Humans did not break. "They think we will starve," said Commander Lee. He was her tactical officer, a thin man with quick eyes and quicker thoughts. "They think we need their trade." "We did need it," replied. 3 years ago, we depended on council trade for 30% of our resources. But Admiral Park saw this coming. He started preparing the moment the hegemony attacked. She pulled up a display showing human space. 18 colony worlds glowed blue against the black of space. But there was more. Hidden shipyards on distant moons, secret mining operations in asteroid fields, factories that had been running day and night for 3 years. We have been building in silence, said. Weapons, ships, supplies. The Council thinks we are weak children. They have no idea what we have become. On Earth, Ambassador Han was preparing her own response to the sanctions. She stood in a broadcast studio, facing cameras that would send her message to every corner of the galaxy. She was calm. She was ready. People of the galaxy, she began. You have heard that humanity refused the Council's judgment. You have been told that we are young and foolish, that we do not understand galactic peace. Let me tell you what we understand. She paused, letting her words travel through the void. We understand that the hegemony killed our children and the Council called it a misunderstanding. We understand that ancient powers protect each other while young species suffer. We understand that your peace is not peace at all. It is control. It is silence. It is death dressed in pretty words. Across the outer rim, billions of beings watched. Many of them belonged to species too small for Council membership, species that had been ignored for centuries, species that had their own complaints, their own wounds, their own anger. Humanity remembers who helped us in our time of need, continued. We remember that no one came, no one spoke for us. The Council watched our cities burn and said nothing, so we will speak for ourselves. And we will remember who stands with us now and who stands against us. She leaned closer to the camera. Choose wisely. The broadcast ended, but its effects were just beginning. In the following weeks, strange things started happening. Small trading ships began avoiding Council stations. They went to human ports instead, where they were welcomed without questions. Outer Rim species that had never spoken to humans before suddenly wanted to talk. They came quietly, secretly, with questions in their eyes. Is it true? Can you really refuse the Council? Can we do the same? Admiral Park met with them all. He listened to their stories. He heard about taxes that crushed small species, about resources taken without payment, about young worlds that were treated like property by the ancient races. We are not asking you to fight, told them. We are only asking you to think, is this Council truly fair? Does it serve you, or does it serve itself? He planted seeds. He did not know how many would grow, but he knew that doubt was a powerful thing. Once it started, it was hard to stop. Back on the Council floor, 3 months had passed. The sanctions had failed. Human ships still flew. Human factories still worked. Human soldiers still trained. Instead of collapsing, humanity seemed stronger than ever. And worse, the Outer Rim was getting restless. Delegates who had always voted with the Council were asking difficult questions. Trade that should have gone to Council stations was disappearing into human ports. This is impossible, Trade Minister complained. They should be starving by now. High Arbiter said nothing. He was beginning to understand that the Council had made a terrible mistake. They had treated humanity like every other young species, but humans were not like other species. Humans had spent their entire history fighting each other. They had survived ice ages and plagues and wars that killed millions. They had crawled out of the mud and reached for the stars. They did not break because things got hard. Hardship only made them angry. And an angry human was a very dangerous thing. In the dark between stars, Fleet Commander completed her final inspection. The human fleet was ready. 200 warships, built in secret, armed with weapons the galaxy had never seen. Their crews had trained for this moment for 3 years. How long until the hegemony realizes what we have? Commander Lee asked. It does not matter, replied. By the time they understand, it will be too late. She looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the hegemony was preparing an attack. They thought they would crush the weakened humans easily. They thought the Council's sanctions had done their work. They were wrong. The war was about to begin, and humanity was ready. The hegemony attacked on a cold morning in the human calendar month of March. They sent 40 warships to the colony world of 3. This was one of the planets the Council had ordered humanity to surrender. The hegemony decided to simply take it. Their fleet commander was called. He was a massive creature covered in gray scales, with teeth like knives and eyes like burning coals. He had destroyed 12 species in his long career. He expected this to be easy. Humans had no real military. They were soft creatures who spent their time talking about feelings and building gardens. This would be a simple conquest. Was very, very wrong. Admiral Park was waiting for him. The human fleet appeared from behind Three's largest moon, 120 ships moving in perfect formation. They were smaller than hegemony vessels. Their weapons looked weaker. Any experienced commander would have laughed at them. Laughed, it was the last time he would ever laugh. All ships attack pattern Delta, ordered calmly. Show them what humans can do. The battle that followed would be studied in military academies for centuries. Human ships did not fight like any species the galaxy had seen before. They moved like water, flowing around enemy fire. They attacked in small groups, striking weak points with perfect timing. They used their smaller size to get inside the hegemony's formations, where the big ships could not fire without hitting each other. Lieutenant commanded a squadron of fast attack ships. She had trained for this moment every day since Nova burned. Every night, she had dreamed of hegemony ships exploding. Now those dreams were coming true. Target their engines, she ordered her pilots. Cripple them first, we want prisoners. Her ships danced through the battle like angry wasps. They struck and retreated, struck and retreated. Hegemony gunners could not track them. Their targeting systems were designed for slow, predictable enemies. Humans were neither slow nor predictable. Meanwhile, Lieutenant led the boarding parties. She was a Marine, a soldier trained to fight inside enemy ships. Her team wore heavy armor and carried weapons designed to work in zero gravity. They were terrifying. Breach the flagship, came the order from Admiral Park. Smiled inside her helmet, with pleasure. Her shuttle punched through the hegemony flagship's hull like a knife through paper. Before the aliens could react, 50 human Marines were inside their ship. The corridors became a nightmare. Hegemony soldiers were larger and stronger than humans, but humans were faster, smarter, and absolutely without mercy. Fought her way to the bridge herself. She kicked open the door and found waiting, a massive weapon in his clawed hands. "You cannot defeat me," growled. "I have killed entire species." Shot him in the knee. He collapsed, screaming. She walked forward and pressed her weapon to his head. "You killed children on Nova," she said. "You laughed while they burned. Do you still want to talk about what you have killed?" His eyes went wide. For the first time in his life, he felt fear. "I surrender," he whispered. The battle lasted 11 hours. When it ended, 32 hegemony ships were destroyed. The remaining 8 were captured. Human losses were minimal, 7 ships damaged, 2 destroyed, 143 soldiers dead. It was the greatest military victory in human history, and it was just the beginning. Admiral Park broadcast a message to every ship and station in the galaxy. His face was tired, but his voice was iron. "The hegemony attacked our world. They thought we were weak. They were wrong. Today, humanity has proven that we will not surrender. We will not bow. We will defend our homes with everything we have." He paused, looking directly into the camera. "To the hegemony, this war will continue until you answer for your crimes. There will be no negotiation. There will be no mercy. You burned our cities. Now we will burn your lies. To the Council, you protected murderers. You called injustice peace. We have not forgotten. We are watching what you do next. To everyone else, humanity asks nothing from you. But know this, we fight for ourselves today. Tomorrow we may fight for others. The age of silent suffering is ending. The galaxy is about to change." The broadcast ended. Across the stars, billions of beings watched in shock. The Council held an emergency session. High Arbiter was pale and trembling. The hegemony had been a major power for 6,000 years. They had the largest fleet in 3 sectors, and humans had destroyed them in a single battle. "We must intervene," declared the representative. "Send peacekeeping forces. Stop this war before it spreads." "With what authority?" asked a small voice from the back of the chamber. Everyone turned. The speaker was Observer, a representative of the Outer Rim Coalition. These were the small species, the ones who had no real power in council decisions. They usually stayed silent. "Not today. Humanity refused your judgment," continued. "They walked out of your peace talks. You have no authority over them. Your rules no longer apply." "The council's authority is absolute," insisted, but his voice wavered. "Is it?" Looked around the chamber. "I see many species here who have questioned that authority in their hearts, who have wondered if the council truly serves justice or only serves itself. Perhaps it is time to ask these questions out loud." The chamber exploded in argument. Species that had been allies began shouting at each other. Old wounds opened. Old Angers returned. Watched in horror as his perfect order cracked like breaking glass. Far away, aboard the captured hegemony flagship, Admiral Park received reports from across human space. More attacks had come. More had been defeated. The hegemony was learning that humans were not prey. Lieutenant stood beside him, looking out at the stars. "They thought we would break," she said quietly. "They did not understand us," Park replied. "No one has ever understood us, but they will learn." He turned to face his officers. With blood still on her armor, Commander Lee with victory in his eyes, and dozens more who had fought and bled for this moment. "This is not the end," Park told them. "This is the beginning. The hegemony still stands. The council still rules. But today, we showed the galaxy that one small species can shake the stars." He smiled grimly. "Tomorrow, we will show them what happens when that small species stops holding back." The officers cheered, and somewhere in the cold void of space, the old powers of the galaxy began to tremble. The war spread like fire across the galaxy, but it was not the war anyone expected. Humanity did not conquer. Humanity liberated. For thousands of years, the hegemony had ruled dozens of worlds. They had crushed smaller species under their boots. They had taken resources, destroyed cultures, and treated other beings like animals. The Council had known about this. The Council had done nothing. Now humanity came to these forgotten worlds, not as conquerors but as friends. Dr. Shin was the first human to set foot on Prime. She was not a soldier. She was a doctor, a healer, a woman who had spent her life helping others. She led a team of 500 volunteers, doctors, engineers, teachers, and builders. They called themselves the Restoration Corps. They had been slaves to the hegemony for 800 years. Their cities were ruins. Their children were sick. Their elders had forgotten what freedom felt like. When human ships appeared in their sky, they expected more pain. Instead, stepped off her shuttle and bowed low before the gathered crowd. "We are not here to rule you," she said through her translator. "We are here to help, if you will have us." They did not trust her at first. Why would they? Every species that had come before had brought only suffering, but humans were strange. They worked alongside the not above them. They asked permission before they built. They shared food from their own supplies. They treated the sick without asking for payment. An old elder approached after 3 weeks. His name was. He had lived through the worst of the hegemony's cruelty. "Why?" he asked. "Why do you help us? We have nothing to offer you. We are weak. We are poor. What do you gain?" Thought about this question carefully. It was a fair question. In the galaxy, everything was about power and trade. Nobody did anything for free. "When the hegemony attacked our worlds," she said slowly, "we were alone. We begged the galaxy for help. Nobody came. The council told us to surrender, to accept our deaths as the price of peace." She looked into his ancient eyes. I never want anyone to feel that alone again. You ask what we gain. We gain the knowledge that we are not like them. We gain the hope that someday, when we need help, someone will remember what we did here. Was silent for a long moment. Then he took her hand in his thin, trembling fingers. "The will not forget," he promised. "Your children and our children will be as family." Word spread across the outer rim. Humans were different. Humans kept their promises. Humans treated small species with respect. One by one, the broken worlds reached out. The who had been used as soldiers by the hegemony. The whos had been poisoned by hegemony mining. The dozens of species, each with their own scars. Fleet Commander led the military campaign. She was ruthless and brilliant. Her ships struck hegemony bases without warning. They freed prison camps and destroyed weapons factories. They never attacked civilians. They never tortured prisoners. They were everything the hegemony was not. "We are writing history with every action," told her officers. "Future generations will judge us by what we do now. We will give them something to be proud of." Commander Lee became famous for his tactical genius. He could predict enemy movements before they happened. He saw patterns that others missed. In one famous battle, he destroyed 15 hegemony ships without losing a single human vessel. The enemy called him the Ghost. Humans called him a hero. Lieutenant continued to lead boarding parties. She was wounded 7 times in 8 months. Each time, she returned to battle as soon as the doctors would allow. Her Marines followed her into hell without question. They knew she would never ask them to do anything she would not do herself. And always, Lieutenant fought at the front. She had lost everything at Nova. She had nothing left to fear. She flew her ship into impossible situations and somehow flew out again. Her squadron became legends. They called themselves the Burned in honor of all they had lost. The council watched in growing horror. Their perfect order was falling apart. The hegemony, which had been undefeated was collapsing. Outer rim species that had been silent were now speaking. They were asking dangerous questions. 1 month after the Battle of Three, Observer called for a special session of the council. He did not ask permission. He simply stood and began to speak. "For centuries my people have paid taxes to this council," he said. "We have followed your rules. We have accepted your judgments. And what have we received? Nothing. The hegemony abused us. You looked away. Now humans do what you never did. They protect the weak. They punish the cruel. They treat us as equals." Other Outer Rim representatives stood to join him. Then more and more. "We do not wish to leave the council," continued, "but we demand change, real representation, fair treatment, an end to the old ways that serve only the powerful." High Arbiter tried to restore order, but his voice was drowned out by the chaos. Far away in a hidden location on a forgotten moon, Fleet Commander met with representatives from 43 species. They had come in secret, risking everything. They wanted what it demanded: real change, real freedom, real justice. "We can help you," told them, "but you must be willing to help yourselves. We cannot give you freedom, you must take it." Ambassador Han spoke next. "Humanity will stand with anyone who seeks justice. We ask only one thing in return. When this is over, when the old powers have fallen, help us build something better. Not a new empire, not a new council, a partnership, equals working together." The representatives looked at each other. This was dangerous. This was revolutionary. This could get them all killed. But they had seen what humans could do. They had seen the impossible become possible. One by one, they signed the charter. The coalition of free worlds was born. When reported this to Admiral Park, the old man smiled for the first time in months. "How many species?" he asked. 43 today, more coming every week." Park nodded slowly. "The galaxy is waking up," he said. "They kept their eyes closed for so long because they thought they had no choice. Now they see another way." He looked out the window at the stars. the same stars that humans had dreamed about for thousands of years before they learned to fly. "We started this to protect our people," he said quietly, "but it has become something more, something bigger than Earth, something bigger than humanity." "What happens when the war ends?" asked. Park turned to face her. "That depends on the Council. They can change or they can fall, but either way the galaxy will never be the same." He was right. The old universe was dying, and something new was being born in fire and hope and blood. 1 year had passed since humanity walked out of the peace talks. The galaxy was a different place now. The hegemony was broken. Their fleet was scattered. Their leader was awaiting trial for crimes against sentient beings. Their conquered worlds were free for the first time in centuries. The species they had crushed were learning to stand again. The Council still existed, but it was wounded. 15 species had left to join the coalition of free worlds. Dozens more were demanding reform. The ancient powers that had ruled found themselves questioned, challenged, and sometimes ignored. High Arbiter had not slept well in months. He spent his nights reading history, human history. He learned about their wars, their revolutions, their strange habit of destroying themselves and then rising from the ashes. He learned about their philosophers who wrote about justice and freedom. He learned about their heroes who died for ideas that seemed impossible. He began to understand that the Council had not just made a political mistake, they had made a moral one. Finally requested a meeting with Admiral Park. He did not demand, he did not order, he asked. Park agreed, but with conditions. The meeting would not be on the Accord Station, that crystal palace where humanity had been insulted. It would be on New Sol, the colony world that the Council had ordered humanity to surrender, the world they had refused to give up. Traveled alone. No guards, no fleet, no display of power. He understood that power was not what this moment required. Ambassador Han met him at the spaceport. She led him through the city in silence. He saw children playing in the streets. He saw markets full of food and goods. He saw monuments carved with the names of those who had died in the war. Humans did not forget their dead. They remembered and they built. The new council chamber of New Sol was not made of crystal. It was made of stone and wood and glass. Simple materials, honest materials. It held no thrones, no platforms for the powerful to look down on others. Everyone sat at the same level. When entered, he found himself facing not just humans, but representatives of 67 species. The coalition of free worlds. Many of them had been slaves or subjects just 1 year ago. Now they sat as equals, voting members of a new order. Admiral Park sat at the center. He was older now, more tired. War had cost him much. But his eyes were still sharp, still watching, still waiting. Stood before them all. For the first time in his ancient life, he did not know what to say. He had mediated 10,000 conflicts. He had never been the one seeking forgiveness. 1 year ago, he began slowly, humanity came to the Council seeking justice. You had been attacked. Your people had been killed. Your cities had burned. You asked us to hold the guilty accountable. He paused. The chamber was perfectly silent. We failed you. We chose order over justice. We protected the powerful at the expense of the innocent. We told ourselves that this was peace, but it was not peace. It was convenience. It was cowardice. Lowered his head. Among his species, this was the deepest gesture of shame. We underestimated humanity. We thought you were young and foolish. We thought you would break under pressure. We thought you would learn to accept what we gave you. He looked up, meeting Park's eyes. We were wrong about all of it. You did not break. You grew stronger. You did not accept injustice. You fought it. And you did something that the Council never did. You helped others. You freed the enslaved. You healed the wounded. You treated the smallest species with the same respect you demanded for yourselves. The coalition representatives were watching with expressions of wonder. Many of them had never heard a council member admit to any mistake. "I cannot undo what was done," continued. "I cannot bring back the dead. I cannot erase the pain we caused by our silence, but I can offer this. The council acknowledges its error, not in private, not with excuses. Here before the galaxy, we admit that we were wrong." He extended a tendril of light toward Admiral Park, a gesture of respect, of submission, of hope. "We do not ask for forgiveness. We have not earned it. We ask only for the opportunity to change, to learn, to become what we should have been all along." The chamber was still. This was the moment that would define everything that came after. Park looked at Ambassador. She nodded slightly. He looked at Fleet Commander, who had won battles that should have been impossible. She nodded. He looked at Lieutenant, whose Marines had bled on a dozen worlds. She nodded. He looked at Dr. Shin, who had healed more than bodies. She had healed hope itself. She nodded. Finally, he looked at Lieutenant. She had lost everything at Nova. Her family was still gone. Nothing could bring them back. But she was not the same person who had stood in the council chamber 1 year ago, trembling with grief and rage. Met his eyes. After a long moment, she nodded. Park stood and walked toward. The ancient being watched him approach, uncertain what would happen. Park reached out and clasped the tendril of light with his own weathered hand. It was warm. It was alive. It was a connection between two beings who had been enemies but might become something else. "The galaxy does not need rulers," Park said quietly. "It does not need empires or councils that decide the fate of others. It needs partners. It needs equals who work together, argue together, build together." He tightened his grip. "If the council is willing to become one partner among many, not above, not below, but beside, then we can talk. We can build. We can try to create something better than what came before." Felt something he had not experienced in thousands of years. Hope. "We are willing," he said. "We have much to learn. Will you teach us?" Park smiled, a real smile, tired but genuine. "We all have much to learn. That is what partnership means. No one has all the answers, but together we can find better questions." The chamber erupted in sound. Coalition members were cheering, embracing, crying. Species that had been enemies for centuries shook hands and made promises. The old order was not dead, but it was changing, growing, becoming something new. In the gallery above, watched with tears on her cheeks, she thought of her mother, her father, her little brother. They would never see this day. They would never know that their deaths had sparked a revolution that changed the galaxy. But maybe, wherever they were, they could feel it. Maybe they knew that their daughter, their sister, had stood with the people who refused to break, who refused to bow, who refused to accept a universe where the powerful could hurt the weak without consequence. Found her and stood beside her, saying nothing. Sometimes silence was the greatest comfort. Below, Parkin were still talking, planning, dreaming of what could be built. The hard work was only beginning. There would be arguments and failures and setbacks. Change was never easy. But it had started. The old galaxy, the one ruled by fear and power and ancient privilege, was fading. In its place, something new was growing, something fragile and imperfect and beautiful. Humanity had walked out of the peace talks because the peace was false. Now they were building a real peace, one that would include everyone, one that would remember the burned cities and the broken worlds, one that would never forget the price of silence. Wiped her eyes and straightened her shoulders. She had work to do. They all did. The future was waiting, and for the first time in a very long time it looked bright.